this route, you'll try and personalize the artwork and the pre-made tools that you're downloading. You don't want to do an asset flip. Rather, you want to be personal and personalize the artwork that you're downloading. A great example of this is taking pre-made assets and making them your own is a game called The First Tree. I mean, it's an amazing game, it's beautiful, and I recommend you give it a look. It uses assets from Unity's store, including art and development tools. Now, step 3 for getting into game development is learning your sound design tool of choice. I'm not going to linger on this for too long simply because discussions about sound design best practices are a bit of a mixed bag. But it's really hard for me to offer up specifics, but I will tell you that creating great sounds for my games has always felt a little bit like the Wild West. From freesound.org to productioncrate.com and other paid services, I tend to bring various downloaded Foley sound effects into a free program called Audacity, so you should download that immediately. Just mess around until your sounds feel right. Audacity has some great tools that are really easy to learn and also some really cool effects. So just to mess around until it feels right. And before we get into exactly what makes a great sound effect, you really should know where you can get these Foley sound effects from, and a lot of them are free. Some websites that I find myself hanging out on a lot are freesound.org is the first one. Now, I've been downloading sounds from this public library for almost 12 years. Man, was I like 16? I was 16 years old when I started using it. Obviously, there's plenty of awful sounds here, trust me, but overall you'll likely find what you're looking for. You can just download multiple sound effects, sort of piece them together to get the sounds that you like. I mean, even movies like Star Wars, the original Star Wars movie, they would take multiple Foley sound effects that you wouldn't think would make sense, combine them, and then it would be this amazing sound of a TIE fighter. So it's incredible. You should actually watch a documentary on it. It's pretty cool. It'll help you learn sound design. Now, the second website is kind of the opposite of freesound.org, and that is Production Crate. Production Crate is almost completely opposite, simply because it's a paid service and it's fairly limited in terms of its library to freesound.org. Now, the sounds on here are high quality and really showcase what makes a great sound effect. Again, we'll talk about that in just a second. So for $70 a year, it's really hard to say no to this. And don't let me forget to mention that Production Crate has some awesome music and video effects as well. So this is perfect for throwing together an epic trailer in a hurry, and we'll talk about trailers in a second. So that's a way to kill two birds with one stone. You can get great effects for your trailers, while also get really great sound effects for your games. Production Crate is awesome. Take a look. Now, there's plenty of other sites with sound effects, obviously, like 99sounds.org, noiseforfun.com, incompetech.com. Sound effects for your games. Production Crate is awesome. Take a look. Now, there's plenty of other sites with sound effects, obviously, like 99sounds.org, noiseforfun.com, incompetech.com, opengameart.org, or racebeaches.com. I mean, the lists can go on and on. Honestly, though, I would just stick with freesound.org and Production Crate. I mean, they're going to serve your needs, and it's not expensive at all. So take a look at both those websites. All right, let's jump into what makes a great sound effect really quickly. I know it feels weird for me to get so specific about this, but a few key points will save you a lot of confusion in the future. And I just had this problem yesterday where I was wondering why my game sucked. There was a part of my game that really sucked, and I couldn't figure out why, and it was just because of the sound effect. The sound effect wasn't snappy, it didn't feel right. So I'm going to talk about some quick tips about how you can make your sounds feel great and make your game even better. I mean, first, your sounds typically should include a good amount of bass and treble. I mean, this is bass, and this is treble, and then this is them combined. See how it feels full? I typically have to find two sound effects to achieve this and combine them. And I can use something called equalizer in Audacity to make both bass and treble happen with my sound effects. Obviously, this takes practice. I've been doing this for over 10 years now. But just be sure that when you're comparing your sounds, you're comparing them to really great games who do this well. Obviously, a game like Hollow Knight does a really good job of making their sounds feel good. They feel bassy, they feel trebly, if that's a word. Makes them feel alive. So just compare your sound effects to great games out there. Now, I've found the simpler the sounds, the better. And I know this sounds weird since we were just talking about Star Wars combining sound effects. So if you're not making a sci-fi game, simpler sounds are probably the best bet here. A great example of this is a game like Below, where they take very simple, clean, raw sound effects, and they don't really mess with them too much. As opposed to someone like me who spent all of yesterday trying to figure out how to get a pile of leaves, a xylophone, and a whooshing sound to be the sound of collecting a heart in the game. And then I finally found a sound effect for a triangle.
Не, реально, слушай, да, так это.
Xylophone and a whooshing sound.
Great, yeah.
Very simple, clean, raw sound effects, and they don't really mess with them too much. As opposed to someone like me who spent all of yesterday trying to figure out how to get a pile of leaves, a xylophone, and a whooshing sound to be the sound of collecting a heart in the game. And then I finally found a sound effect for a triangle, and it was really like simple and it made sense, and I felt kind of guilty, like I didn't spend much time getting this sound effect to work, but it just works. Honestly, there's no reason to be cocky about this. Just get a great sound and move forward with your game. Sometimes I find myself trying to be a little bit too creative, when in reality you can be pretty simple, like games like below. Finally, if you're having trouble finding awesome sound effects, just use instruments in GarageBand, which is free, or Logic Pro, or Pro Tools, or FL Studio. They have some awesome live instruments that you can use to get some great sounds. Believe it or not, games like Breath of the Wild do this amazingly well. If you ever open up the menu in Breath of the Wild, you'll notice that a lot of the sound effects of selecting certain UI elements are actually just simple, clean instruments. Alright, the fourth step, man, I hate talking about the fourth step, but we gotta do it. It's beta testing. Look, I'm not gonna get into the nitty-gritty about beta testing, mainly because I already made a video about this, and I don't really want to keep talking about it, but it's the most painful part of game development. Honestly, we gotta do it though, because we can't really see our own games the way that maybe our audience will see them. So it's really good to get their perspective. I mean, honestly though, it's just a depressing part, so let's kind of get through this here. For beta testing, you really can approach it as casually as you like, but I recommend doing it in a specific order, and here it is. First, I reach out to my audience on all social media platforms, and I collect email addresses of willing participants. Then I send them a Steam key, a survey, and instructions. Finally, I try and incentivize or just communicate how important it is to my beta testers that they complete the survey. Don't send out a Steam key and not remind them to do a survey, because people will just play the game and not do a survey. No malintent here, they just might forget. Alright, finally you collect the data and the things the players they hate, bugs, other comments they have, and here's a little tip. Maybe drink a little bit of whiskey while reading this, because you're going to need it. It's tough. Alright, I can't overstate how important this step is. Please don't skip it. I know I hate it, and I know you'll probably hate it. Don't skip it though. You're likely going to launch and your game will fail because you just didn't have the perspective of your audience. Maybe you had a little bit of rose-colored glasses on for your game. Now, technically, emotionally, mechanically, they're going to be able to tell you how your game is failing, so you really need to be listening to people outside of your studio. Now, finally, the fifth step to getting into game development and ultimately launching a game is, well, launching a game. A launch on one platform can be completely different than the launch on another. I mean, preparing for the launch of Xbox, for example, is really like nitty-gritty. There's a lot of things you've got to do to sort of conform to the standards that Xbox and Microsoft has for their games. Whereas something like Steam, they're not really going to tell you what you can and can't do. You just launch your game. It's really amazing. So if you're going to be launching a game, Steam is really the easiest option to do. Believe it or not, Nintendo Switch isn't that challenging either. But if you're going to be doing a simultaneous launch, Nintendo Switch isn't that challenging either. But if you're going to be doing a simultaneous launch, you're going to need to put a lot of effort into getting these games built and ready to perform well on each platform. It can take a lot of time. So for me, because I'm such a small studio, it's just me. I usually launch on one platform, and then another, and then another, and another. This reduces revenue, but, you know, honestly, is it even possible for a one-man studio to release on every platform? I mean, I don't know, you tell me. But I really don't want to be focusing on the specific platforms right now regarding launching a game. I'd rather focus on marketing to release on those platforms. Marketing is really the most important part here. Marketing preparation should really be taking you about 40 hours a week for a month. That's really how much time you should be spending on marketing. I know it sounds like a lot, but just remember how hard you worked on your game to begin with. Finish strong here. Don't walk the final lap of the marathon. The 40 hours of work per week for a month should consist of the following. Compiling a list of 150 to 200 personal, and don't let me understate that, personal email addresses of games journalists and YouTubers who might take an interest in your game. Now I'll make another video soon explaining how you can find journalists who will likely enjoy your game. An example is you don't really want to find a journalist who is an MMO enthusiast and you're telling them about your art game. They'll give you a bad score and you don't want that. You should also be spending your time building out a show-stopping trailer, okay? All I could say here is plan to iterate, just like you did with your game. A good rule of thumb is don't be self-impressed with your trailer because the first iteration of it probably sucks. Pretend you're Reddit's most pissed off user and then watch your trailer and then critique it. Be critical because you really want to make this thing pop. It's what's going to sell your game. Be sure it's around 1.5 to 2 minutes long, include your logo, links, etc. You probably know the drill here. Now, finally, get your audience ready. When you're going to launch a game, you want to be utilizing your audience. Even if you have 1,000 followers total, and that's about it on all social media platforms, that's great. If you can get 10% of them to grab a copy of your game and write a review, that's awesome. Now just remember, keep getting free games, especially like free Steam games, out to your audience, and then hope that you can get great reviews on Steam. It doesn't work that way. Steam actually ignores the value of a good review from someone who got the game for free. So you really want to tell your audience on social media how important it is that they can go buy your game and let them know it's at a discount. Maybe if you're launching at a 20% discount, let your followers know that for a limited time, they can get your game for 20% discount, and then tell them emphatically how important it is that you get a review, because reviews will help your game get into the atmosphere. Alright, requesting a review from your followers, just FYI, you don't need to feel bad about this. Don't feel bad about tooting your own horn, because your followers are likely going to want to see you succeed, because frankly, they've been following you for maybe a year. Like if you've been working on your game for a year, they really want to see you succeed, and they'll likely be much more incentivized to go purchase a copy of your game and write a review if you're honest with them and tell them how important they are to your studio.
Want to know the most common mistake men make when they're learning, but have no clue they're making it? See, every time a guy approaches me, one of three scenarios plays out. Scenario number one, he talks to me without ever making a move or escalating. And in that case, he'll always be doomed to the friend zone. Scenario number two, we talk for a while, but when he tries to take it to the next level, gets rejected immediately and comes off as a total creep. Scenario number three, he ignites instant chemistry. That
Alright, so that's it. Not bad, right? It might seem complicated to get into game development, but trust me, this is just a lot of words spewing out of my mouth. I know I talk kind of fast. In hindsight, looking back, it really wasn't that complicated for me to release a game.
Да ну вас надоели. Не то что скреп, все. Ну нет, понимаете, да. Ну, уже то, что не знаю, ну да. Хорошо. Marriage. What is the relationships? What is the relation? Marriage. Happiness. Goodbye. Ой, блин. Хорошую работу не люблю. Я всех уже затерроризировал. Просто один меня слушает самое, да? Не знаю, хорошая она или нехорошая эта работа. Они все как бы, какие работы хорошие? По какому критерию ты смотреть будешь? Гипотетически какая разница, да? Ну не прав, значит, да. Самые хорошо, какие полезные, какие вредные. Да, типа того, понимаете. Да, ну вот это тоже интересно. Да. Для чего? Это все не важно, это долгий разговор. Да, потому что, да, ну, как хочешь. Ну да, выбирай какой-нибудь такой. Как ты будешь следить за здоровьем, будучи барменом, например? Или алкогольным, там, профессиональным. Не знаю, уж как-нибудь, да, соображай сам, касается, да. Вот только же для чего? Пристрастие, это да. Нет, наоборот. Наоборот, нет. Ну и что это изменяет? Понимаете? Просто надо работать, надо, да. Очень вредно, компьютерные игры вредно. И музыка это вредное занятие. Там, да. Любая музыка, по-своему, да. Ну, может, да, причесанная, может так. Вот это он себе. Зрителем можно быть, то есть, смотрителем телевизора. Что это меня мало в детстве? Что твои дети тренируются? Жить задарма, да, как говорится, смотреть телевизор бесплатно, потреблять. Беспечно, что у них будет детство, будет счастливо. Женский разговор. Так всегда женщины говорят. Я что-то не слышал, чтобы мужики так. Уже как-то так это насторожило. Знаешь, если мужик так говорит, то это как-то, понимаешь, странно в этом случае. Да? Нет, ты так не считаешь. Это все-таки, понимаешь. Что ты с женщиной возьмешь? Женщина, она же умная. Сначала она не беременная только, если что. И лишние мысли заводятся на той счет, да. Ну что теперь? Счастье оно дороже ума. Что дороже? Ум или счастье? Ты решайся. Или грустно. Нет, родных близких не считаются. Ну, это я вот не могу вам сказать, не знаю. на себя, значит, его